Ladies and gentlemen, we are live for the 5th edition of Fan Friction. Welcome to our new show. Everybody, we have to clap for ourselves because Ashley's actually fighting today. We don't have our cheering section.
Woo!
If you've never seen our show before, our 5 panelists or our 3 panelists will battle it out in our movie fights rounds, and then the 2 people with the highest scores will go on to the lightning round to battle out for the Fan Friction Supremacy. So let me introduce to you today our panelists. Our first fighter is a New York tattoo artist and co-host of the Odd Shape panel, which airs every Monday here on TUFF. Welcome back to the ring, Kimber Barrett.
Hey, everybody. Woo! Excited to fight.
Good to see you again. Our second fighter joins us from the great state of Texas. He's more than just a Screen Junkies #1 fan. He's ours. Say hello again to Raul Rodriguez.
Hey, guys.
Good to see you, Raul. Our last fighter has been our resident fact checker for the past several weeks, but now she's back to school the competition. Welcome back to teacher from Texas, Ashley Davis. Welcome back, Ash.
Hey, everyone. It's good to be here.
And finally, we needed someone to check the facts, and he graciously agreed to keep us all honest. He's the other host of the Odd Shape panel. It's Tom Bennis.
Hello, everyone. Hello. I've made it to the big time.
If you saw last week's championship round, you know that the winner, Brian, who is now our Fan Friction champion, is moving on June 5th to face Hector Navarro in a very special Fan Friction. But first, we need another opponent. So today's winner of Fan Friction will join Brian in that very special match June 5th. So hopefully everybody can join us for that in 2 weeks. So today we are going to get things started. As a reminder, it's the first 5 rounds. I lost my train of thought, so now I have to remember it. We're going to play the first 5 rounds. Whoever wins 2 will definitely move on to the lightning round. If you win more than 2, you can win a special bonus for the lightning round. So keep that in mind. Definitely want to fight hard throughout the fights. And we are ready to begin with round 1. Ding, ding. Thank you, Apollo Creed. All right, round 1. This is our Newsies round. Alice Through the Looking Glass is set to release in theaters May 27th, marking the 9th collaboration of Tim Burton and Johnny Depp. We wanted to know which was their best collaboration, and today we will be starting with Kimber.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pick Edward Scissorhands, their first collaboration. I think this is the best one. It comes from an original story that was co-written by Tim Burton about his own life. It's beautiful. It holds up. It's got an amazing score by Danny Elfman, who also, along with Tim Burton, considers this their most important and personal work. I just think it's a classic, and it's definitely their best collaboration.
All right. Raul, who'd you pick?
I picked Sleepy Hollow. This is the collaboration they did, Tim Burton and Johnny Depp in 1999. Sleepy Hollow, of course, is the legend of the Headless Horseman. And also, for me, it's one of the best collaborations between the both of them and also Danny Elfman. And also, it represents the gothicness and the darkness that Tim Burton always portrays in a lot of his stories.
Okay. Wonderful. And last is Ashley. Who did you pick?
All right, I picked his 1994 second collaboration, the critically underrated, or critically celebrated, but box office underrated Ed Wood. It's the tale of the B-movie icon Ed Wood, and Johnny Depp portrays that main character, and it's a very interesting role for him.
All right. Kimber, why don't you start us off? Fight away.
I would love to. Not only did I pick the only movie that Tim Burton did an original story for, obviously Sleepy Hollow is a classic story, we know he didn't do that one. Ed Wood is kind of a biopic, he didn't write that either. It's only the only choice of these ones that Tim Burton was originally the director for. Both of your guys' movies had separate directors that had to step out for different reasons that he ended up replacing them. He wasn't even the original director in these movies. Also, Ashley, you love Danny Elfman, and you picked the only movie that Danny Elfman didn't do a score for, which I think is important in a Tim Burton movie. I think it gives the feel of a Tim Burton movie. This movie's about self-discovery, isolation, which embodies the spirit of any teenager or any person who loves Tim Burton. I think it's one of Johnny Depp's best performances. That's the reason they started the collaboration. There was all kinds of people lined up to play Edward Scissorhands. Depp got the role because he did such a good job. They were talking about people like Tom Cruise and stuff, weird choices. It started their whole thing with all these 9 movies. He probably wouldn't be in any of your movies if he didn't get this one.
And kind of piggybacking off of that, like, yeah, it was their first collaboration, but I think it also started a bad trend of the, like, lovable weirdo character that in later movies, like in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Alice in Wonderland, where it's like too over the top and strange for the sake of being strange, and Ed Wood, and yes, it doesn't have the Elfman score because they were having a little tiff, but a casual fan wouldn't be able to tell the difference. The score still sounds very much like something that's in a good Tim Burton film.
Well, we are not casual fans, and I think it's odd for you to point out Edward Scissorhands is over the top, because I think his performance is really subdued and beautiful. Again, he's basically playing Tim Burton in the movie, so that's how he sees himself. And he was way more over the top in Ed Wood than he was in Edward Scissorhands.
I think it makes sense for him to be over, or not. I don't think he's really over the top in Ed Wood. That he's playing, that character as he was true to life, with the cross-dressing and all of that. I think it's actually, considering those factors, one of the more normal characters that Depp has played over his career. Y'all's 2 films are like hot topic fodder that sells merchandise. So mine's a true artistic piece.
You absolutely know that's nonsense. Edward Scissorhands is beautiful. It's perfect embodiment of the Tim Burton feeling. Also, again, this is written about Tim Burton. He said, there's a quote here about the person who co-wrote the movie with him, Caroline Thompson. She said, every detail was so important to Tim because it was so personal. This is his most personal piece, and I think it really was for Johnny Depp, too. I have a quote here that I found that said, when Johnny Depp read the script, he wept like a newborn and immediately found a personal and emotion connection with the story. Tell me where he said anything about that for either one of your guys' movies. Sleepy Hollow, I don't even feel like is a contender. That's a weird choice for me. Johnny Depp is a terrible casting for Ichabod Crane. I see definitely more someone like Adrian Brody for Ichabod Crane than Johnny Depp. This is when he was just shoehorning Johnny Depp into his movies at this point because of prior success with this stuff. And when I success, I'm not even including Ed Wood, really, because that wasn't very successful at all. That was a huge flop. Sleepy Hollow only has a 67% on Rotten Tomatoes. Edward Scissorhands has a 91% audience score and 89%. People definitely care more about this movie than Sleepy Hollow. Sleepy Hollow is not memorable, and Ed Wood was not successful.
Okay.
Let me hear more from Raul, yeah.
Yes. Kimber, you said that, of course, Edward Scissorhands is an original story, but it has a lot of similarities with Frankenstein and also from Beauty and the Beast. If you remember, Edward, he's very innocent. He doesn't know what to do when he gets out from the mansion. And also, when he's trying to discover what he has to do with the town, how he cuts the hair, also how to impress Winona Ryder, and also at the end also has that similarity with Beauty and the Beast. He has to confront the other guy he wants to destroy, like Gaston. That was the other guy, and also she has to be amazed, and also she has to be afraid of him, and also. It has those similarities. Of course, has the original twist, and also, of course, my film is not based on an original idea. It's an old tale. It's an old legend, and also the Headless Horseman, the Sleepy Hollow, and maybe for a lot of people it can be unforgettable. But for me, was one of the first times that I saw this portrayal of the Headless Horseman, this legend. I have only read in short stories. Also, it's one of the first Tim Burton movies that I saw in the theaters, and also I was like 10 years old to see a very bloody movie with heads running around, and also the blood, and also the cast. You say that Johnny Depp is not right to portray Ichabod Crane, but maybe that's right the spin that Johnny Depp made for him, because he was funny, but also he was like, he need to, he need to resolve the mystery of this town. The darkness that portrayed the whole this town.
Actually, it's funny that you say that because Johnny Depp did not get to portray Ichabod Crane even the way that he wanted. He wanted to do like prosthetic nose and fingers and ears to make himself look more like Ichabod Crane, but he was shut down by Paramount. They wouldn't let him do it. So he didn't even get to portray that character the way that he wanted to in that movie. Also, Christopher Walken was wasted in that movie. He doesn't say anything in the entire movie other than, yeah. It's not memorable. It's not even the best version of the Sleepy Hollow story.
And the movie itself, like the character of Depp is very bland and like when he has like his little quirk about like blood, like he can perform autopsies and he's totally fine, but like one little drop of blood and he's passing out. Plus the accent is so weird, like they're in like the 18th century, but they're talking in standardized received pronunciation, which is the way British people talk now, but that didn't exist back then. So to me, it's just another one of those like Deppisms where like, oh, I'm going to sound like a weird guy, well, I'll do like a different accent. And there's creepy flashbacks with a mom and like a whole Oedipus complex thing going on there, and it's just like it's supposed to be a horror movie, R-rated, but to me it felt like a PG-13 film. And then Kimber, you're talking about critical success of your movie. Well, my movie has a Rotten Tomatoes score of critics for 92% and audience score of 88%. And so it's even though it didn't do very well when it was first released, it was definitely a film ahead of its time and it's kind of found its audience now. And I think it has a very sensitive portrayal of people that have lifestyles that are outside the bounds of normal society. Even though Ed Wood, it was a very eccentric character, they treated all the LGBT characters very sensitively in that film, which was not standard for his time period, nor really standard for something in 1994 as well, and probably would have a lot of issue with today. But again, very sensitive portrayal.
Also, Ash, I found out on Wikipedia that in Ed Wood, the grandson of Bela Lugosi, he wasn't happy of the portrayal of Martin Landau as Bela Lugosi because he portrayed very differently as his father was in real life, and also there were some differences between the biographical terms and also truths about how Ed Wood made his movies. Also, Ed Wood also is very underrated. And also, it has the more critical success on the whole three options. But also,
I want to defend myself for a second because you guys were slinging some stuff at me for sure. I don't think that just because the Edward Scissorhands story has some classical elements and themes that are included in a lot of stories, that it doesn't make it an original story by Tim Burton. There is nothing else like Edward Scissorhands. Everybody knows that movie. It's easily one of his most recognizable and best characters, so I think that's really unfair. Yeah, you're saying that there's critical success and stuff in Ed Wood, and that's cool, but that movie had an $18 million budget, and it made $5.9 million. That is a huge flop, if you ask me.
And again, because the movie was ahead of its time, making the stylistic choice to go against what the studio wanted, going with that black and white film. We know general audiences don't understand things that are not big, flashy pieces, and this was definitely not a big, flashy piece.
Yeah, your movie almost didn't get made because nobody wanted to make it in black and white. It bounced around several studios before it even got picked up. And a lot of people don't like black and white, and that's the reason still, like, it's not like it had a huge, giant cult following and picked up a huge following after it was released. It's still kind of an underground movie, a good movie, I'll give you that, but underground and definitely not the best Depp-Burton collaboration. I think you get the best Depp-Burton collaboration in the first one, the one where he had to audition to get the role, the one where he was trying to break free. This was not typical Johnny Depp at the time. He was known from 21 Jump Street. He completely changed his career and became the actor that he is today because of Edward Scissorhands.
And I think that movie started a bad trend that we can see in a lot of later Depp films and Burton films. If that movie
started a bad trend, then both of your movies are victim to that because they happened after this. That's a silly accusation. You know, there are plenty of good Burton-Depp collaborations. This is the best one.
Kimber, let me real quick. Kimber, do you want to make any final thoughts about your movie?
I mean, my final thoughts is that this is a perfect movie. It's Vincent Price's last movie. It's the best you get of Depp and Burton together. He got the job based on, not being his buddy like he did in your guys' movies. He got the job because he was the best actor for the role. It's Tim Burton's most personal movie, easily his favorite and best work. That's pretty much it.
Raul, let's hear some of your final thoughts.
Yes, my final thoughts on Sleepy Hollow. It's gonna be not a forgettable movie for some people, but for me, it's not forgettable. I love this movie. I love the blood in this movie. I love the guttiness in this movie. The stellar cast that it has Johnny Depp, Christina Ricci, Miranda Richardson, has Michael Gambon that was Dumbledore in Harry Potter, has Rachel Griffiths as was Uncle Vernon in Harry Potter, has Ian McDermott, he was the Emperor in Star Wars. It has also Michael Gough, he was Alfred in the Batman movies. And we also have Christopher Lee, he was Count Dooku, he was Dracula. Also we have Ray Park, when he made the stunts for the Headless Horseman, he was also Darth Maul. And also we have one of the most beautiful things that I also love and also understand that when I saw this movie was the cinematography by Emmanuel Lubezki, El Chivo Lubezki. The portrayal that he made for all the guttiness and the darkness of all the whole tale, and also to portraying all the different twists and also the blood, and also how Ichabod Crane also he was, let's just say he was afraid of blood and everything, but that was the tale that he wanted to make, Tim Burton, and also the whole movie is about the whole characters, not only between the collaboration of Tim Burton, and also we had the perfect score of Danny Elfman in this movie. That also portrays a collab because and a collab also between Tim Burton and Johnny Depp also has the collab between Danny Elfman. And also in Ed Wood, we didn't have Danny Elfman. And also a lot of the cast, he recurs in every movie. And Ed Wood, it was different because in Ed Wood, you don't know what exactly was going on because it has a lot of different historical facts that didn't happen in real life of the life of Ed Wood and Bela Lugosi. And also for Edward Scissorhands, I didn't choose that movie because that's the safe choice. A lot of movies, if you say Tim Burton, everybody's gonna choose Edward Scissorhands because
there's a reason for that.
Because that's the movie that Tim Burton was stapled on.
You're goddamn right.
I choose Sleepy Hollow because I always like to choose the underrated, the underdog, and also this movie for me is one of the best movies I have seen in horror movies, and also one of the first horror movies that I saw since I was little, and also seeing the theater. Even my sister, she was like 5 years old, and she saw everything. And so that is why I chose Sleepy Hollow, and also that's why. And also was produced by Francis Ford Coppola. I didn't know that.
All right, Ash, what are your final thoughts?
All right, just because something is the first collaboration doesn't necessarily always mean it's the best. Talking about something being underrated and not being a safe choice, I think Ed Wood definitely fits that category. A lot of people would go with Edward Scissorhands because it's well known, and then again, Sleepy Hollow is it's just a very bland movie, and it doesn't even seem like it could be anyone else's movie. Ed Wood is classic Tim Burton, even though it's not something that he originally created himself. He definitely, you would never know that, like, Ed Wood seems like a kind of character that Tim Burton would have created if he didn't already exist in real life, and I think a lot of that movie and the actions of Ed Wood parallel probably some of the thought processes that Tim Burton has as a director that's not always critically accepted. So I think it's the best collaboration between those two because it's not too over the top. It's the right balance of quirkiness, and it has a lot of stylistic choices behind it, whereas Sleepy Hollow is just kind of a bland movie. And then Edward Scissorhands, you said that there's nothing quite like it. Well, I mean, Pinocchio's kind of like it if you squint at it a little with the whole man-made creation. So. All
right. Whew, this is going to be a tough one. Tom, tell us about some of the facts in this round.
Everything was pretty clean. One hiccup. While Raul was correct that it was Bela Lugosi's son, did not like the depiction of his grandfather at first. When he actually watched the movie, they actually got into contact and became really good friends. So that was the only thing I caught factually. according to WhatCulture.com, Edward Scissorhands and Ed Wood are pretty much neck and neck at 1 and 2, and Sleepy Hollow's at 12. And we have a lot of fans on Twitter. Morgan Robinson's excited that he's hearing a lot of classic actor name drops. And we have the poll results for when you're done. All
right. Well, Raul, I gotta tell you, I think they kind of hit you really hard on this one. It isn't the best casting of Depp in comparison to the other two films. It is a bland studio interference kind of movie. So for me, it came down to Kimber and Ashley. Kimber, you really highlighted the original story, original director, how it had the original director, and how Depp was really the perfect person to play Tim Burton. And Ash, you really got that hot topic fodder. I actually wrote that down. That was fantastic. But it's grown in popularity, and how they really handled LGBT in a time where people weren't really talking about LGBT. But I think that ultimately that's one of the reasons the show Ed Wood did not do well domestically for its time. Whereas I think there was a lot of appeal in Edward Scissorhands. And why it was so popular right from the get-go and is still popular today. So my choice is Kimber for round 1. Congratulations, Kimber.
Thank you.
Well done.
Good job.
That movie is really important to me.
On the polls, we had 71% Edward Scissorhands, 29% Ed Wood, and 0% Sleepy Hollow.
I'm really shocked at those results. I figured nobody would pick Ed Wood or even know what it was.
No, we have a few cult savants in the
awesome.
Twitter sphere.
Ed Wood is a very good movie. It's just not their best collaboration.
Yeah.
Well, when you picked Edward Scissorhands, it's kind of what were we supposed to pick?
Well, I thought about that. Raul did say, it's the one everyone picks, and I'm like, well, there is a reason it is the one everyone picks. But you argued it well as well. So congratulations on round 1. We get ready here to move to round 2. I'm just writing my notes here, and let's get what's his face to hit it. Thank you, Apollo. All right, round 2, the superhero movie. A Harley Quinn solo film has now been rumored to be in development, so we'd like to know what other villain, DC or Marvel, should get their own movie. And in this round, we are going to start with Raul.
My choice it will be a solo movie. It will be Thanos. Thanos, we first saw him in the end credit scene in the Avengers, and also we saw him in a little bit in Guardians of the Galaxy, and also an end credit scene in Avengers Age of Ultron. I will pitch a movie, but let's see the other options and then we talk.
All right. Ash, who did you pick?
I went with another Marvel villain that we've already seen, kind of in Iron Man 3. I would like to see a Mandarin solo film, and I'll kind of hold my cards until I hear the other thoughts.
All right. Kimber, who'd you pick?
I picked a Batman villain because Marvel has terrible villains. I picked the Riddler.
All right. Raul, start us off. Tell us a little bit more about your Thanos idea.
Okay. Thanos, right here in Marvel, says he has superhuman strength, he has superhuman speed, he has telekinesis, telepathy, and also he has an ambition, he has power, he wants to destroy, he has a profound love with death, and also with the personification of death. And so that was mysterious for me, so I was like, this is interesting. I didn't know this thing about Thanos. And also, we can put out like a movie connecting the different stories that we have seen in the MCU. It can start how Thanos was in the portrayal of his powers, how he was discovering his powers, and also how he was living in his planet of Titan, and also how was his obsession with death, and also with the personification of death that he loves, and also. We can also answer the questions of how he raised Gamora and Nebula, and also how he was pulling the strings with the Chitauri in Avengers, and how the Chitauri will help in Loki, and also at the end, also how Thanos was controlling everything, and also we can see also how he will have also like a quick a fight between the Guardians of the Galaxy. It will connect with the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 when Infinity War, and also we can also see another connection. Also, I heard in the comics that also Thanos was also related in the Thor Ragnarok storyline, and also we can also maybe Thanos in my pitch will be also that he can kill finally Loki. It will and also we'll have outstanding point for Thor to go back to Earth and also to defend Earth and also the Avengers and also the war against Thanos, and also we can see Thanos destroying Sandar to finalize his Infinity Gauntlet to all the Infinity Stones.
So it's like a prequel to the Avengers Infinity War?
It's like a prequel and also like filling all the plot holes in the different MCU movies to understand the motivation of Thanos.
Okay, wonderful. Ash, tell us more about your Mandarin.
Alright, so one of the big problems with Iron Man 3, at least I feel this way and I think other fans feel as well, is that they didn't handle the Mandarin well. And I'm not talking about, like, well, he's not like the comic book origin where it's kind of like you get, if you're not careful with it, it'll end up being something like D.W. Griffith's Broken Blossoms or like a Charlie Chan, not sensitive portrayal. I think the problem with that movie was that they didn't go full out with Ben Kingsley as the Mandarin. I think it was a mistake for them to go with the Trevor Slattery plot line, and then Killian was really the Mandarin, but then they released that All Hail the King mini movie tied with a Thor, The Dark World, where it kind of explained away, and then, well, the Mandarin's really out there. I think they should have just stuck with Ben Kingsley's character as the Mandarin, and I think a standalone movie, since we've already been introduced to some of those elements, they could keep some of that and maybe retcon a little to keep his character as the Mandarin and kind of make up for like the mistakes that they made in that film.
Okay. And Kimber, tell us a little bit more about the Riddler making a movie.
Okay, so I know I'm saying the Riddler, and the first thing that is popping into your head is Jim Carrey's Riddler. That is not my Riddler. I want redemption for that crap because the Riddler has never been done well in a movie. So what I'm pitching is Neil Patrick Harris as a very dark Riddler. And I would like, Zack Snyder is out. I don't know if you guys heard that news. So this is the time to move in a different direction for DC. And this could possibly be the movie to save the DCU. Even if your guys' movies are great, they would just be another great Marvel movie. This could actually turn things around for them. I would choose someone like Nicholas, and I'm going to butcher this name, Nicholas Winding Refn. He's the director of Bronson and Drive. I think that he would be excellent to make a movie like this. I think he'd be perfect to work with NPH and even better to work for the Riddler, because if you've ever seen Drive, that Ryan Gosling is nearly in every shot of that movie, and the big themes for the Riddler are narcissism, manipulation, insecurity. He's sadistic, egotistical, and psychotic. Doesn't that sound like a fun character to do? What I'd like to see them do with him is sleek him up, maybe dress him more like they did Kilgrave on the Netflix series, and turn Batman into a detective again. This could be the ultimate battle of wits, which is what the Riddler always wanted. There are a bunch of cool storylines that they can pull from. One I like in particular, I believe it's called Where is a Door or When is a Door? He starts talking about the good old days with villains, I used to run around with Egghead and these groups, and it was so lighthearted, and when did they start killing everybody? They could do a really meta statement about how Superman and Batman have been killing all these characters and bring that out with a character like the Riddler. Also, when you have Neil Patrick Harris, he can totally be a horrible person and everybody would still love him. I think he's perfect for the Riddler. I think he's age appropriate against Ben Affleck's Batman, which I think would be a great match for him, and this is a movie I would want to see.
I'm sorry, say again, who did you cast as the Riddler?
Neil Patrick Harris.
Oh, NPH. All right, got it.
Yes.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah, also, one more thing about this director. I have a nice quote about him that Alicia Malone posted 2 days ago after she saw his most recent movie. There is definitely nobody quite like Nicholas Winding Refn. I absolutely admire how he swings for the fences, go big or go home. That's what DC needs to do. This is the guy to do it for them, and Neil Patrick Harris as the Riddler would be amazing. It would be legendary. Legendary.
Let's wait for it.
Yes.
Okay. First, Kimber, we haven't seen Neil Patrick Harris portray a dark character.
That's exactly right. It would be amazing.
And also, many people will gonna compare him also with Jim Carrey because he's a comedian.
Yeah, but it's not the same thing. It's 100 times more toned down. Neil Patrick Harris is capable of giving nuanced performances. Jim Carrey is always turned up to 11. Anyone who's seen Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog can see the promise that an NPH Riddler could have.
And also, the Riddler is already being portrayed also in Gotham. I don't know if Gotham
but that's different. You can't.
I know.
They're going to have a whole nother. They're pulling characters from all the shows. There's going to be a new Flash. There's going to be a new everything. They've done Smallville. That's not a reason to not have a show about a movie for the Riddler specifically.
And also for your Riddler pitch, how it's gonna contrast, and also how it's gonna affect the DCU. How it's gonna benefit.
Have you seen Drive or Bronson? Because I think this director would fit in perfectly and do an amazing job. I think that he has the dark tone that the DC universe has already going, but he also brightens it up in a way that makes it far more appealing. I also think that MPH could be dark and have that brooding tone that they have, but bring a sense of humor to it. Like I said, you can go dark with him. He could get away with a lot. Like when he was Barney Stinson, if anyone else was doing that role, they wouldn't like him. But you let him do whatever you want, even get away with murder because it's Neil Patrick Harris, and that's why he's great for it.
And also in Neil Patrick Harris as the Riddler, he in a whole movie, it will be a whole movie like every 5-10 minutes. Oh, Batman, let's guess who I'm gonna kill next. Oh my God, you need to resolve this mystery. And also, it's gonna be a lot of guesses and a lot of riddles. So it's only for that.
Your dude, okay.
Only for
I think it's funny.
The whole movie.
I think it's funny that you're attacking me when you picked a character that has literally been sitting in a chair for the whole time. He doesn't do anything. He just has henchmen. He sends them out. He sits in a chair. They didn't even use Thanos to this fullest potential. I have serious concern for a Thanos movie because they've turned this character who gives these beautiful monologue speeches into this character that gives shitty one-liners and sits in a chair. Mandarin, by the way, let's jump to him for a second. The director of Iron Man 3 said, and I quote, "The Mandarin is a racist caricature." He's a problematic character. Why are you going to bring attention to a misstep that they made in the MCU? There's so much that's good. I think they need to throw that in the past and move forward from Mandarin. And Thanos is a kind of a weird choice for me.
And also, for like you said, Thanos has a lot of beautiful lines, and also he's like a dictator. He's like a general. And also, like you said, in the movies that have portrayed not only been sitting. In my movies, we're gonna portray him doing war, destroying planets, portraying his obsession, controlling the whole galaxy, grabbing the Infinity Stones. Because if this movie doesn't exist, we know in the Infinity War we're only gonna see him sitting around. We're gonna see him in the Earth. He's gonna destroy everything with the gauntlet. We're gonna have a lot of plot holes and mysteries and questions like how he get the other stones. How he's gonna interact with the Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor.
Your movie has no coherent direction. It sounds like a 5-hour-long movie. You have 6 plots going on at the same time. Thanos is a Darkseid ripoff. And also, he operates on a power level that's the same as Odin. How do you even, the stuff that's going on with Thanos isn't, the world is a speck on this dude's radar. He has such bigger things going on, it's kind of hard to put him into a movie. And if they can't even get him right in the 10 seconds that they put him in movies, I'm concerned about a whole movie, especially a full Marvel villain movie, because their best villains are on Netflix. They have problems nailing villains. That's why I went DC. And I don't think that they would knock it out of the park with Thanos. I think it would be a misstep, and that there's a reason why they only have him in the movies briefly.
You just said that DC doesn't have good, and also DC hasn't have good portrayals of his villains. This DC cinematic universe, it was a joke because of the J.C. Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, and
Well,
also
that's why my movie's
them
going to fix
Doomsday.
that. But historically, in the comic books and are you like forgetting so quickly that Heath Ledger's Joker is a DC villain? There's massive potential. There's massive potential for DC villains, particularly Batman. Batman carries DC, and it's because he has the best villains.
But Kimber, you said that this riddle will be for the new DC universe. The Christopher
Yes,
Nolan
the one where
movies
they just got rid of Zack Snyder, and it's because of the missteps that he's made with the movies that you're talking about. This is a chance for them to start fresh and do a really good job with a character that people are familiar with but haven't seen enough of.
Yes, but Heath Ledger, his portrayal as the Joker in the Christopher Nolan and the Dark Knight is not canon for the new DC universe. So now the new DC universe doesn't have good villains.
I wasn't talking about the Marvel universe specifically. I was saying that the Marvel universe has problems, but I was saying that DC Comics and DC in general has better villains.
I'd like to take a second and hear from Ash a bit more about the Mandarin.
And I totally agree that from what I've read about the Mandarin in the comics, yes, it is a very insensitive portrayal, and I'm not saying that that's what we should do. I'm saying that they should have just let Ben Kingsley, who is half English and half Indian, and I know that's not his comic book origin, but let him just be the Mandarin. And my idea to how to fix some of that, because again in Iron Man 3 and then All Hail the King, you know, he's still the Trevor Slattery. I thought it would be an interesting portrayal, because another problem a villain hell movie is going to have is whenever you have a villain as a protagonist, you're going to have to feel sorry for them. And for Thanos, I don't see how that would work, especially because of the powers that he has, and plus the idea of trying to close all the plot holes with a prequel and then, you know, set up other things. I think that's too big of a mess, like Kimber said. But what I was thinking to how to save the Mandarin, and again, not make it a, you know, an insensitive portrayal, is, you know, Trevor Slattery and the Mandarin are the same person. Maybe he has dissociative identity disorder, and so he doesn't even realize that he was this Mandarin character. He thinks that he really is Trevor Slattery. It's just another part of his personality. I think that would be an interesting way to go with the character and still keep him as Ben Kingsley, because Zack Snyder, Shane Black has said, you know, the real Mandarin is out there, and I don't want Marvel to kind of go a step back with this character. I think what they were starting with Ben Kingsley was really good, and then they kind of pulled the rug out from under us with Killian being the real Mandarin, who is even not the real Mandarin. He was just using that as a scapegoat to do what he needed to do in the film. And as far as a Riddler film, like, I think that's a good character, but I'm not sure if in this current DCU, if he could carry a movie on his own. I think I would much rather see him as, you know, in like maybe the next Batman movie with Ben Affleck, and he'd be the villain of that film, and then maybe.
I think that a dude whose main theme is narcissism is the perfect person to have their own film. I certainly think the Riddler would think so.
So I want to get final thoughts here. So real quickly, Raul, how do you see Thanos at the end of your movie for your final thoughts?
At the end of my movie, we're gonna see him ready, and also we're gonna see him with the Infinity Gauntlet, destroying planets, destroying the galaxy. We're gonna see him, like I just read that in the comics, he sends the Silver Surfer to warn Earth that Thanos is coming. So I just heard that maybe Hulk is gonna be in Thor Ragnarok. So maybe we can see with the Infinity Gauntlet Thanos controlling the Hulk, sending him back to Earth. It says Thanos is coming. So it will be like a good like cliffhanger to prepare us to Infinity War. And also against the Mandarin, like you said, Ashley, he can have that mentally disordered thing. It will be worse for the MCU, also for the fans, because after that cop-out that says that Trevor, I'm not the Mandarin, he's the other guy. And then with the Marvel one-shot that says the Mandarin is still out there, they wanted to, maybe they're gonna kidnap Trevor and everything. It's gonna confuse more of the fans, and they're gonna hate more the character. And also for a Riddler, for carry out the whole movie, the Riddler's more part of that movie, like with another villain. It will be like a side villain, a complete.
Yeah, because that went so well the first time.
All right, Ash, tell me where we see the Mandarin at the end of his solo villain film.
I think that for his film, he'll be, again, struggling with his dual identities and also taking a line from the comics. They do have the 10 Rings organization. I think they should bring in the actual 10 Rings from the comics. Maybe one of his subordinates, like in the comics, has sold him out, so he's spending the whole movie trying to get that back, maybe having to team up with some other MCU villains. And I think he's just kind of, at the end of his film, will be setting up some of the further plots, maybe bring some stuff with the Iron Man back into it. But, kind of working behind the scenes, setting up some chaos and terror that maybe Avengers or Iron Man, someone that's going to have to solve further down the line.
Okay. And Kimber, final thoughts with your character. How does your movie end?
I would like to see him actually outwit Batman and get a leg up on him, and maybe in a few others more interesting. DC does a better job. I think now is the time, losing Zack Snyder, to make a change and do something different. I don't think that these Marvel villains could carry their own movie. And riddle me this: if your guys' people are so cool, then why do this than them? I think they're weird choices, particularly the Mandarin, because that is a racist cartoon to me. And I just think that the Riddler is the one that I would want to go see a movie for.
All right. Well, we did lose your signal there a little bit, but I did catch most of what you wanted to say. This was a tough round. Tom, what can you tell me?
There's a little confusion on Twitter about Zack Snyder definitely being out or not. According to an Inquisitor article released 3 days, he is been taken off all of, he's not involved with the overhead, he's not the Kevin Feige of the DC universe, but he is still involved with Justice League. People are asking online. Other fact checks, I'm kind of a nerd, so I don't want to kind of nitpick. There's things everywhere.
Okay.
But on Twitter, there's a lot of support for both the Mandarin and the Riddler. I'm also getting a lot of suggestions for some other ones.
And again, if people are watching at home, remember to tweet along with us at This Is Tough, TUFF. While the show is going on, we do follow our Twitter to see what's happening. I didn't mention at the top of the show. This is a tough one. Was there a poll, Tom?
There was a poll. Do you want it before or after your decision?
Give it to me after. This is going to be a difficult one. When I heard Ash, I heard that I heard what you were trying to do with Ben Kingsley and kind of re-establishing that character for a great actor. But I think they really both kind of tore you down with the race issue. It's like recalling a bad memory. Multiple personality disorder. It's a confusing storyline, and people won't really understand where it fits in the universe, especially considering all the botches they made with Iron Man 3. So for me, it did come down between Raul and Kimber. I'm going to move my notes closer to me. Let's see. I like the idea, Kimber, that it's going to turn around DC Comics, that this is the kind of movie that we want to launch to bring that around. Raul kind of hit you with the confusing the DC universe and the TV universe with choosing NPH when they already have one in the show, but you did rebuttal that well. They've already recast the Flash in the Batman v Superman movie. Raul, I like that we're not going to see him in the chair anymore, which is a big draw for Thanos. We can finally see what Thanos is going to do, but mostly what I heard is a lot of him destroying the world and or blowing up planets, destroying the galaxy. But I haven't really heard about any opposition that he was going to face. And like Kimber said, there were too many plots. Whereas Kimber did mention, it's a Batman and Riddler story, so there's that opposition there the entire time. So I think for me, again, my choice is going to be Kimber for round 2. Well
Yay! Done. Everything's coming
According
up.
to the polls.
Yeah, what did the poll say?
The first head-on-head tie for the Riddler and for Ashley's pick, the Mandarin.
Oh wow!
50%.
Nice.
Well, since I just named the winner, I will push Riddler and hit vote, and that will carry you over the top.
Just trying to manipulate those polls. I see how this works.
I agreed with the poll. Look at this. Fantastic. Well done, Kimber. So now, Kimber, if you win another round, you will get a bonus to use during this lightning round ahead. So you are definitely moving through. So definitely keep fighting hard. And if you manage to win the entire show, we do have the I won all 5 rounds rule. If she wins all 5, there's no lightning round. You are the winner. So we will see what happens here as we get ready to move into round 3. Apollo? All right, round 3. We call this the Fight Club round. Who is the best action film star in the 1990s? This round we are going to start with Ash.
All right, I'm not sure how much you want first of all, but I picked
Give me a brief fight.
I picked for quintessential action star of the 90s. I picked Sylvester Stallone. Out of the 13 films that he was in the 90s, 8 of them were in the action category, so that gives him a 62% action to other genre ratio. And when I think of action star, I think of someone that is like big and can kick a lot of butt, and Sylvester Stallone is the perfect choice for that. Okay.
All right. Kimber, who did you pick?
I went with Bruce Willis. I think that Bruce Willis is a great action star of the 90s, obviously with a bunch of movies, the Die Hard sequels, Fifth Element, Armageddon, 12 Monkeys, Pulp Fiction. But I also think that he's great because he continued to have a good career after the 90s. So I'm going with Bruce Willis.
All right. And Raul, who'd you pick?
I picked Keanu Reeves. He was in Point Break in 1991 with Patrick Swayze. He was in 94 with Sandra Bullock in Speed, and also he was in The Matrix in 1999. The Matrix, you said in the 90s one is the best action movies of the whole decade. It will be The Matrix because it revolutionized special effects and also action sequences.
Okay. All right, guys, fight. Ash, you can start.
All right, I would knock Keanu Reeves off the list just because out of the 20 films that he was in the 1990s, only 5 of them are actually action movies, and among those 5 are like box office bombs, Johnny Mnemonic and Chain Reaction, and then really in The Matrix, that's just kind of like Keanu Reeves. Like at first he was pretty good until he got to I know Kung Fu, and it's like, really, Ted, you had to ruin this. So I would say that he's probably a better choice for an action star of the 2000s decade rather than the 90s. I don't see him as a 90s star. And then as for Bruce Willis, out of the 26 films that he was in the 90s, only 12 of them are considered in the action genre. Not a whole lot of critical success aside from Die Hard and The Fifth Element. And then 12 Monkeys, is that really considered an action film? Because when I was looking up his career, it wasn't listed in that genre, but maybe I haven't seen that movie as closely. But I would say out of the 3 choices, when you think a quintessential 90s action star who, his career did start in an earlier decade, and he has also had some success in his later career with the later Rockies and that kind of stuff. His Stallone is an Oscar-winning actor, so I don't think his star has died. And he was in The Expendables, which has pretty much every 80s and 90s action star in it.
Bruce Willis, yeah.
Yeah, but Keanu Reeves
was not.
He was not Raul, so...
Oh, okay. I'm going to say why Keanu Reeves wasn't in The Expendables. Because he wanted to be one of the wash-up 90s and also 80s action stars that only wanted to be in The Expendables for a paycheck. And also, Bruce Willis... He made a lot of good. He has a good choice. He was in the Die Hard, Pulp Fiction. He was The Sixth Sense is not an action movie, but he was on Unbreakable, and also Bruce Willis, also The Fifth Element. But Keanu Reeves, even though he didn't make a lot of action movies. If you say 90s, always in the top, you're gonna say it's gonna be Bruce Willis, it's gonna be Keanu Reeves. Sylvester Stallone, he was only good. He was more like an 80s star. He was Rocky, Rambo. He was more of an 80s action star. And in the 90s, he made only pure sequels and also those little action movies like Cliffhanger.
Yeah, but you can't forget you can't forget about Demolition Man, which was, maybe a little underrated back in the 90s, but actually holds up way better today than it ever did in the 90s with all of the pop culture references and everybody trying to be so politically correct and all of that. So that's a great movie. And then, I know Dredd probably wasn't a huge, critical success, but I really liked that movie when I was growing up. I watched it a lot. I thought it was a very, sensible action film.
And just so we don't insult the really good Dredd movie, you mean Judge Dredd.
Judge Dredd, yes, Judge Dredd. Not that I don't know what that other thing is. What are you talking about? And again, just because someone is a star in the 80s doesn't mean that their star cannot continue to rise, into the 90s. And I think, Sylvester Stallone can hold his own up against these two. In fact, if you check some online polls, I can't remember the exact website, like Top 10 Best or something, Sylvester Stallone is in the top of that list, where, again, Keanu Reeves is not on it, and Bruce Willis is somewhere kind of in the middle. So I would say if you're ask a movie, like a general movie fan, they would probably think Sylvester Stallone before they're going to think of Keanu Reeves, if at all, and before they'll think of Bruce Willis.
Okay, let's talk about Bruce Willis for a second, actually, because you can't throw away the Die Hard series. They made $700 million with the first three of those, and I realized that they didn't start in the 90s, but they were in the 90s. Those movies are, to some people, the best action movies. They talk about them nonstop on Screen Junkies. How many times have we seen them fight Die Hard? It's for a reason. I think that Bruce Willis epitomizes, the American action star. He's like the normal dude, but he's a badass. He's also the one who can act out of the bunch. Keanu Reeves is kind of infamously bad. Even when he did Bram Stoker's Dracula, which could have been a really good movie, Francis Ford Coppola directed it, he was terrible in that. In action movies, you talked about Johnny Mnemonic, Chain Reaction, Feeling Minnesota, and all the stuff that he did that was really bad. He had to take pay cuts in his next few movies in the 90s because they were so bad. That's how it was for him. He didn't really do anything that was good after the 90s until John Wick. Those Matrix sequels, yeah, the first one is amazing, but the Matrix sequels are famously bad. At least Rocky and Die Hard have good sequels. Only Rocky V was in the 90s, and that was a flop. And you're talking about people who can keep their career going and stuff. Sylvester Stallone hasn't kept his career going up until now. Bruce Willis has done much more afterwards. All that Stallone has been doing that's successful are the Expendable movies and the stuff that's connected to the Rocky franchise. Bruce Willis is also a supporter of the military in real life. He's done USO tours and even considered joining the fight in the second war in Iraq, which I think all of us would have loved to see personally. Bruce Willis is a good action star in the 90s, and he is a good guy in real life. A real life action hero is what Bruce Willis is.
I'm not sure if we can really bring real life into the fight.
I feel like I should be saluting right now.
Yes.
As far as Stallone goes, again, if you think action star from that period, that genre, he's going to be in the top, top one or two. Whereas Bruce Willis, he's had probably statistically a lot more bombs in the 90s than even Stallone has had. I mean, yeah, sure, Stallone had Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, which he was tricked into doing by another action star.
I don't know if statistically that's true. I just think that Bruce Willis did way more movies, so of course he's going to have a few more bombs because he's done so much more. And the thing is about Stallone, he makes me crazy. He's hard to watch. He can barely talk. I think the reason everyone loves him in Rocky is because they believe that he has been punched in the head almost to death, and that's why he talks that way. That guy, him and Keanu Reeves, if they were in a movie together, it would be unwatchable. Those two guys can barely act and barely talk.
And also, Bruce Willis, after the 90s, he was in a lot of movies that he doesn't care anymore. He was in the Red movies. He was in Cop Out.
The Red movies are awesome, and Looper is amazing. He's continued to do action stuff that's
really good. He was in Die Hard 4 that a lot of people hate, and also Die Hard 5. And also he was also in The Expendables, that horrible cameo in G.I. Joe 2. And also, as the one that all these three people that have made a great comeback is Keanu Reeves, because he also remembered all the greatest action. He was a great action star also. Now they're saying the arguments in the 90s, but he has the greater comeback right now with John Wick. And also the John Wick movie inspired the Russo brothers to make a lot of the action sequences to have the choreographers for Civil War, and also Sylvester Stallone. He's almost forgettable. He just made the Creed movie because they wanted to talk about him again. We already have forgotten about Sylvester Stallone. The Spendable movies, they were only good around the world. It's like a bad movie that you wanted to see on a Sunday on cable. Not even on cable, you wanted to see on network TV. When those Spendable movies they suck. And also, Sylvester Stallone is gonna always be trapped in those roles of being Rocky and Rambo. He's never gonna get out from being those roles.
Hey, sometimes actors have to go with what they know, and Stallone knows action. I don't think there's anything wrong with being in a film like The Expendables. If you got to go with what you know and what's in your wheelhouse, because sometimes if you try to go outside your wheelhouse, like he's done a few times, you don't have as much success. You have to, with an actor like that, especially in the in the 90s, you go with what you know and is going to make a lot of, especially for the 90s, a lot of money. And a lot of his movies in the 90s, maybe not domestically successful, but worldwide, always made a profit. Plus, in 1997, he received a Lifetime Achievement Award for his acting from the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films. So if he's really so bad, why would they give him an award like that?
Let me. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Well, what I'd like to do real quick, and starting with you, Ash, is give me the top 3 action films from the decade that you would pick for your choice. So Sly in this case. What are Sly's 3 best action films in the 90s?
All right, I would say his top 3 from the 90s are Demolition Man, Cliffhanger, and then even though it wasn't a critical success, I think it's still a fun movie to enjoy, would be Judge Dredd.
All right. Kimber, what were your top 3?
I'm probably gonna go. I like Fifth Element, maybe Armageddon, or just Fifth Element and the Die Hard sequels.
So 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Okay. And Raul, same question.
For me, I would choose The Matrix, Speed, and Point Break.
All right. Final thoughts, Ash, on Sylvester Stallone.
Again, Stallone, a lot of his movies in the 90s also reached number 1 or number 2 at the box office. Again, he's like a fun actor. You know what you're getting with a Stallone film, and that's probably why his movies, despite maybe some critical failure, were still successful at the box office. Bruce Willis, kind of a contender. Stallone again did more action films than Bruce Willis did in the 90s. And then Keanu Reeves, I don't consider him an action star from the 90s. Definitely more of a 2000s plus action star.
Okay. Kimber, final thoughts.
Yeah, I definitely think that Stallone's peak was in the 80s, before the 90s. He hasn't been carrying it over recently into his career. I think that Bruce Willis is the one that's an actor. I think he's probably the most quotable one because he's the one who has the good lines because he can deliver them. Keanu and Sylvester Stallone don't have that. Sylvester Stallone is just he's just like a big meaty dude. I'm a meat popsicle. He's just a big meaty dude, and Keanu is just pretty. He doesn't have to talk, I think that Bruce Willis is the best action star of the 90s. He's made a bunch of iconic movies then, and then continued to have a diverse and interesting career all the way up until recently.
All right, Raul, final thoughts.
Keanu Reeves, he didn't make a lot of action movies, but if you ask about the 90s, one of the best action movies of the whole decade, it was a lot of people were going to answer The Matrix or Speed. And a few people will answer also Point Break. And also, I guess Sylvester Stallone, like also Kimber said, Sylvester Stallone peaked a lot in the 80s, and also in the 90s he made a lot of small action movies, and they were big successes here in the U.S. They were successes in the United States, and also a lot of studios, they always care more domestically than worldwide. That is a bad thought about studios. And also for Bruce Willis, after the 90s, Bruce Willis made a lot of comedies. He was on Friends. He made the whole 9 Yards movies. He made the Red movies, The Cop Out, and also he was in The Expendables. And also, He also was the voice on the Over the Hedge, and also he has the horrible cameo in G.I. Joe. He has been forgotten. If you know, if you can interviews and a lot of interviews, we know that Bruce Willis doesn't care anymore. He doesn't care about movies anymore. And also with Keanu Reeves, he cares about doing movies because his choices for making movies is the ones that he's most passionate about. That is why he's making the John Wick sequel, and also he's making Bill and Ted again. So that is why it's my choice.
All right. Tom, help me out here. What do we got in the facts?
All right. Everyone was pretty clean. Kimber said that Bruce Willis is an all-around nice guy. That is not the public opinion on Bruce Willis. He's kind of a dick in real life. But 12 Monkeys is not an action film. It is a neo-noir science film. I didn't really get any other facts. Everything was mostly opinions. On AMC's top 20 action heroes, we got Keanu Reeves at 18, Sylvester Stallone at 4, and Bruce Willis at 2. 1 was Arnold Schwarzenegger. A lot of people on Twitter were surprised no one fought Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I was actually very surprised no one picked Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Samuel also doesn't want us to forget about Stop or My Mom Will Shoot in the 90s with Sylvester Stallone.
I mentioned it.
He mentioned it.
I meant, sorry, I got lost in the Twitter sphere.
It's cool. I know
it got mentioned twice.
And also, Sylvester Stallone was in Ants. He was the voice of that. Yes.
I didn't consider that an action film.
we got a pretty diverse poll going on for after the vote.
All right, so there's no doubt that all three of these stars are great picks. So everybody picked a good one. When I looked at Kimber, when I looked at yours, the thing I heard the most was he's Bruce Willis, especially now, is more about quantity than quality per se. He's still acting now, but I don't think he cares now. And the best Die Hard movie he made was in the 80s, not necessarily the 90s. So for me, it was coming down more between Sylvester Stallone and Keanu Reeves. They're kind of neck and neck for me, actually, but I think what finally did it over was your lists. Raul's list is Point Break, Speed, and The Matrix. Ash, you chose Cliffhanger, Demolition Man, and Judge Dredd, and as we all know, there's one really bad movie on this list of 6 titles, and that movie is Judge Dredd. So I have to go with Raul's list of Point Break, Speed, and Matrix. Raul is going to win with Keanu Reeves. Congratulations.
Wow.
Yes, Keanu.
Unexpected.
I would like to interject that a lot of people are just happy that Raul's here.
Raul makes everything fun. We all know this.
They love it.
So good job, Raul. Way to take round 3.
What did the poll say?
Oh, yeah, what was the poll?
Yes, the poll, it was pretty close. Keanu Reeves came in at 22%, Bruce Willis at 34%, and Sylvester Stallone at 44%.
Oh, it did tighten up. Yeah, it was tough not to pick Sly. I think the thing that could have really helped you is they kept saying, he's not really a good actor anymore, and I'm like, he was just nominated for a role in Creed. But yeah,
I said he was an Oscar winner.
Well, he was an Oscar winner for writing for Rocky, but not necessarily for action. But anyway, guys, great job, great round, and we're going to go on to round 4. We're changing it up a little bit. This week we're calling this the Sound of Music round. This is also going to kind of tie with a theme from our first question. Speaking of the Alice in Looking Glass from question number 1, this film marks the 13th collaboration of Tim Burton and Danny Elfman. So we want to know, what is the best original score composed by Danny Elfman? It does not have to be a Tim Burton movie, just what is the best score by Danny Elfman. And this round we are starting back at the beginning, which I believe was Kimber, you were first?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Kimber, what do you got?
Okay, anyone who watches Odd Shape Panel already knows my answer to this question. I picked the only movie score that moves me to tears every time I hear it. Literally this morning I was listening to songs from Edward Scissorhands, my beloved Edward Scissorhands, and when you hear Storytime start and Castle on the Hill, it moves you so much. So I had to go with Edward Scissorhands again for Danny Elfman's best score.
All right. Raul, you're second.
My choice, I chose Spider-Man, the 2002 movie with Tobey Maguire, directed by Sam Raimi. A lot of people would say that Spider-Man really started the trend about comic book movies, and also Danny Elfman's score portrays a lot of the hope and also the darkness and also the feel, also the coming of age of Peter Parker discovering his powers and also how he needs to defend New York City.
Okay. And Ashley, who'd you pick?
I went with the Tim Burton Batman from 1989 as the best Danny Elfman score.
Okay. Bat dance. All right.
That doesn't count. That's Prince.
I know, that's Prince. That's just jumped in my head.
We're not talking about the Prince parts.
No, we will not hold Prince against you, although you gotta
Yes.
love Bat Dance. I just heard Bat Dance today for the first time in like 10, 15 years. Okay, Kimber, go ahead, hit us. Ever scissors hands.
Okay. I'm not going to hold Prince against you, but I am going to say that that is almost more memorable than the soundtrack that Danny Elfman did for Batman. I think that the reason that my score has a leg up on you guys is because Danny Elfman was not restricted to working around superhero movies. I do think that if you're going to pick what the best Elfman score is, you should stick with Tim Burton, because that's what's defined his career, is his relationship with Tim Burton. Again, as I said in the first round, Elfman himself has cited this as epitomizing his most personal and favorite work. I also have a quote from him. He said, "If there is anything that I love, it's sad music, and you cannot get any more sad and beautiful than the Edward Scissorhands soundtrack. Every single track on it is gorgeous." Yeah, you guys want to go ahead and say something? I'll come back.
Okay. I chose Spider-Man because also I recently just heard again in this morning the soundtrack of the film, like in the main title, and also it enters you. You already know the type of movie you're gonna see. One of the most beautiful comic book movies of the 2000s. This movie started the idea of around Marvel and also for Fox and also DC to why we need to do comic book movies again. And because after Joel Schumacher killed the Batman franchise in 1997, in 2002, Spider-Man was a comeback of comic book movies. A lot of people say that maybe X-Men in the 2000s was a comeback, but X-Men was a little underrated. A lot of people saw it, but it wasn't like, oh my God, X-Men was the stem by the box office success. Spider-Man was one of the biggest box office success on the 2000s. And also in the in the tracks, the main title already enters you. Like there's also one of the tracks that says the costume montage. There you see a lot between the whole orchestra, all the different tones that you can see Peter discovering his powers and also doing his different costumes. And also the revenge track, when also you can feel the pain of Peter Parker and also Spider-Man, that he just seen his occupant dying in his hands, and also pursuing throughout the whole New York City, pursuing the thief that shot him, and also his decision to kill him or not, because also it's the hero's choice. And also one of the other beautiful tracks is the parade attack, and also you first see like the Green Goblin. You can also, I just heard only the soundtrack. I remember the Green Goblin arriving to the balcony and destroying all his bosses on the company, and also Mary Jane dropping, and also Spider-Man saving her, and also saving the children and the different people.
Yeah, I hear you. Like, I feel like you're mostly just talking about the movie, though, not the soundtrack itself.
I'm talking about the soundtrack, talking about the tracks.
Hey, let me talk about Batman for a moment. All right, so this soundtrack was so good, the score was so good that unprecedented in the 80s, or at least not very common, they actually released the Danny Elfman score as its own album. It peaked at number 30 on the U.S. Billboard 200 chart. I think that's very telling for something that is only instrumental tracks, especially during the 80s when there's a lot, even the late 80s, where there's a lot of other competition for things that you could spend your good album buying dollars on. So that's one thing that it has going for it. The main theme of Batman, they reprised it in the Batman the Animated Series. It is an iconic song, but that's not the only good song that is on the soundtrack. It definitely enhances the film. And, despite being a superhero Tim Burton film or, a superhero Elfman score, you can still tell that it's a Danny Elfman score at the end of the day. It's still whimsical when it needs to be. There's a lot of sad tones in it. And the themes for the characters are different enough. Whereas in Spider-Man, I rewatched that movie the other day just to re-listen to the score, and I was like, this doesn't sound like a Danny Elfman score at all. I would honestly mistake the Spider-Man score for a Silvestri score or something else from the current MCU. There's nothing special that stands out about that Spider-Man score that says it's Elfman's piece.
I agree with Ashley on that. I was going to say the same thing. I don't think most people would identify that as Elfman, or even maybe, a lot of cool people would know it was Elfman, but I don't think it has the stamp of a Danny Elfman soundtrack. Again, I think you have to pick a Tim Burton movie for that. But I think Edward Scissorhands is the better one.
And see, the problem I have with the Edward Scissorhands score, and I think it is a beautiful score, but in the context of the movie, and I think that's where you really have to break it down between our scores, because on their own they all sound pretty good, except for Spider-Man, which was really boring in my opinion. But for in the context of Edward Scissorhands, whenever they would have those scenes where something was going on with the characters, the score was so loud that for me it didn't enhance the scene, it kind of detracted from it a little. And at the end of the day, a film has to is a visual medium first, so I felt that Batman had a leg up on that, as where it was just it was just enough to enhance the scene. It never took away from it. And again, both beautiful scores, but another knock on Edward Scissorhands is I think a lot of it, and this might be more of a nitpick if you've heard a lot of Elfman scores, but a part of it, I think a casual fan, I don't know if they would be able to tell it apart like we can. I think they would get confused with Nightmare Before Christmas with a lot of the snow scenes, and then Pee-wee's Big Adventure for a lot of the neighborhood scenes. I think that, again, general audiences might not be able to tell it apart, but if you hear that Batman theme, you're going to know what that's from.
Yeah, for sure, but I think that's why Edward Scissorhands is great, is because it is a really diverse score. It does have those beautiful, sweeping, sad songs that bring you into the story, and you can't help but recognize them, because when you hear the music you're talking about, where he's making the ice sculpture, everyone knows that's from Edward Scissorhands. That piece of music is beautiful and super identifiable. I think, again, working restraints around comic book characters. He didn't get to be himself. This is his most personal work. He poured his heart and soul into it. You can tell when you listen to it. It's gorgeous. And you get a lot of different types of songs. You get that kind of more like the Beetlejuice style stuff when he's in suburbia and everything's bright and happy. And you get the beautiful sadness at the dramatic peaks in the movie. Batman, the whole thing is just kind of bouncing the whole time. You don't get as much of the diversity. And again, with Edward Scissorhands, he didn't have Prince for the whole half of the soundtrack as well to balance also off of. He only had this score. So I think
there's pop songs in Edward Scissorhands too. I mean, there's all those Tom Jones songs.
If they're listening to music on the radio or something, but that's very different than it being a part of the movie. And
I think some of the Prince songs are from source material too, like when Jack Nicholson is desecrating the art museum, he has a boombox clearly, and so I don't think it's all from you trying to replace the score. And again, the soundtrack itself is released separately. They're trying to differentiate those two.
You go ahead, Raul.
Yes, you're saying that the soundtrack, like you said, in Batman, he focuses on Prince. A lot of people were gonna say, "Oh, Prince that did that soundtrack," and also that you said you said that Danny Elfman, he's always been around Tim Burton. You said that we're not gonna recognize the Spider-Man. If you really ask a lot of people, if you ask them what is one of the most beautiful film scores, one of the purposes of film scores you need to understand the motivations of the character, the motivations of the story. And also, like Ashley said, if the general public really doesn't understand the different variations of Danny Elfman, those themes in Edward Scissorhands, they really are confusing with Number Before Christmas, and I just remembered that And I
Listen,
didn't notice that. And
the
also,
thing is, there is other Spider-Man music. There is other Batman music. The Edward Scissorhands music defines this character. This movie would not be the same thing without the score that it has. It completely carries the entire feel of the movie that's original for this character. If you say that, like, that Danny Elfman did the Spider-Man soundtrack, they're going to be like, which Spider-Man soundtrack?
Let's
know?
get your final thoughts, Kimber.
Is the film score.
Yeah, my final thoughts are that Edward Scissorhands' score is beautiful. It helped you identify who the character was. He had to create the feel of this character through the score because it was an original character. It was nominated for a Grammy. This is one of my top 5 favorite soundtracks of all time. Nothing moves me in the way that Edward Scissorhands does, and I just don't think these other 2 soundtracks have the power that this one does.
Raul?
For me, a film score needs to give you the message that the movie wants to transmit. And also, when you hear the film score in Edward Scissorhands, you can see there is a little hope, a little romance. But if that distracts you from the darkness of the whole tale, because Edward Scissorhands is a very dark tale, because in the end, Edward Scissorhands lives unhappy. He doesn't live happily ever after.
Well, that's why the soundtrack is sad.
Alone. And that is why you say it's sad. And also, for my pick in Spider-Man, it has to give you hope. It has to give you the superhero vibe. And also, that is why I chose Spider-Man, because you chose Tim Burton and Danny Elfman options. So that is why I go outside the box. What is the other film score that Danny Elfman, a lot of people will recognize? That is Spider-Man. It will recognize about the action sequences, the motivation of the characters, and also doing the portrayal of New York City, and also Spider-Man saving it. And also against Batman '89, a lot of people were gonna confuse it with Prince. The only good thing about the Batman '89, he's the main title about Batman, of how portrays even more in Batman Returns, and also portrays it more in the Batman the Animated Series. And so that is why I picked Spider-Man, because Danny Elfman he had a very difficult task, because a lot of people were always gonna identify him with Tim Burton, and also he needed to bring back the hero vibe, the comic book feel that a lot of movies now has, because need to capture the essence of the character, and Danny Elfman portrayed that since 2002.
All right, Ashley.
All right, so again, the Spider-Man Danny Elfman score, it is forgettable. It sounds like it could be by any other artist other than Danny Elfman. It doesn't have any of the whimsical tones that Elfman knows, even if he's not writing for a Tim Burton film, is known for. It is just completely forgettable. When I was watching the movie, I couldn't tell a difference between any of the songs. And then again, for Edward Scissorhands, it is a quintessential Elfman score, but again, I think a general audience is going to, if they heard it outside of the context of the film, they would get it confused with other pieces. And plus, it is so overbearing in that movie, it takes away from some of the beauty of the scenes happening in front of it. Whereas Batman, again, the score is so good. They did an unprecedented thing where they released it as its own soundtrack away from the Prince stuff. You know, I think that's an unfair comparison, is trying to lynch those or like put in those Prince songs, because we're talking about the Elfman score, not any of the Prince pop songs. Again, soundtrack so good. Not only was the whole soundtrack nominated for a Grammy, but the actual Batman theme won a Grammy in that year. And again, it enhances the whole film. It's sad and melodic when it needs to be, but it has those recalls and those reprises to the main theme when it needs to pump up the action. And again, overall, it kind of has the best of both worlds. It has the whimsicalness of the Edward Scissorhands score, and it also feels like a superhero film score, but it still doesn't lose the Elfman identity at the same time.
All right. Tom, tell me about some facts here today.
I mean, everyone was pretty factually clean. I had a hard time keeping up with Ashley, but everything I did find, she nailed.
Good.
This round was very opinionated, and everything I found online, it seems like it's the same, because I had to I had to keep looking just to find like a top 10 list that had everyone involved, and I couldn't. But two lists, one of them doesn't include Spider-Man at all, and puts Edward Scissorhands at 4 and Batman at 3, and another one doesn't list Batman at all and lists Spider-Man at 2 and Edward Scissorhands at 1. So it's kind of hard to get an actual fact on this opinion.
What did
online
on Twitter say? I'm sure Beetlejuice was probably mentioned at least.
Actually, no one brought up. Everyone's pretty much just sticking with the picks that have already been represented.
Beetlejuice would be one of my favorites.
Oh, for sure. A lot of people want to rewatch Spider-Man now that they heard Raul talk about it.
Yes.
But
It doesn't hold up.
It does
It does not.
As a movie,
They should
it
go
definitely
watch. They should go watch
Macy
Edward
Gray,
Scissorhands.
Macy Gray, that
Well-
part in that movie, and then Chad Kroeger, no.
Don't ruin my memories of
a
Spider-Man.
hero can
Yeah.
save us.
All right, so in this round, Raul, I think everybody's right in that of all of the scores that Elfman has done, this is the least recognizable score of all of them as being part of his work. It's definitely a good score, but I've seen all three of these movies multiple times, and it's the one score I cannot recall in my head of the other two. So for me as well, I'm picking between Kimber and Ashley here, and this is tough. Both movies were nominated for, or both scores were nominated for a Grammy, but Ashley's won the Grammy the year before Elfman's soundtrack came out, or Edward Scissorhands' soundtrack came out. Let's see. I got to be honest. The most recognizable theme for me, and I know the Edward Scissorhands score very well, is Batman's main theme, and much of the music. I don't hold Prince against it. I got to say that of all these soundtracks that mentioned today, Batman is the winner. Ashley, you are getting the point. Well done.
Finally! I was like, oh my god, I'm taking it today.
It's painful not picking Edward Scissorhands. I did like Edward Scissorhands a lot. That's a great soundtrack.
Tom, you aren't gonna. Tom, you're not gonna fact check that I was crying.
You were crying. I didn't want to seem biased. I don't have a video to support it. I put it on just to remind myself, and I looked over and she was in tears. But the poll agreed with Ashley's choice, 60%, and Spider-Man and Edward Scissorhands are actually tied at 20%.
Oh wow!
Oh,
So
wow.
good job, Ash. All right, so here's where we stand. Kimber, you have 2 points. Raul and Ashley both have 1. Kimber, you are definitely going through. Raul and Ashley, one of you needs to take this round to move forward, or we're going to a tiebreaker. Well done, everybody, so far. This is our final round, round 5, as good as it gets. Who was the best movie villain of all time? We are going to start this one with Raul.
Okay, my choice is Far Out. Is you see a house alone in the woods and nothing around it, and then you can see a young blonde. He hears her phone and says, "Hello, who is this?" You can see the other voice sounded and says, "What's your favorite scary movie?" My choice will be Scream. Of course, the Scream movie, the villain is Ghostface. That is my choice, and I will argument it more. You can see the other choices.
Can I just say that you need to give John Bailey a run for his money and start doing movie trailers, because Scream has never sounded sexier than when you say it with your accent. I'm just going to throw that out there. I want to see the Scream you're pitching.
Oh, it sounds sexier in Spanish. It will be, ¿cuál es tu película de miedo favorita?
All right, so you're choosing Ghostface. Ashley, who did you choose?
All right, so we had this film in our championship competition, and I had never seen it before. And then just when this question popped up, I was like, oh man, like who am I gonna pick? Best movie villain of all time? Well, it's like at first I was like, superheroes? No, let's go for something like a real villain, like that could actually happen in real life. So I picked from Pan's Labyrinth, Captain Vidal, the true monster of that film.
All right. And Kimber, who did you choose?
Yeah, I wanted to go with something in more of a real direction too. I also wanted something classic and that also had a fantasy feel to it. So I went with my all-time favorite villain, Alexander Delarge from A Clockwork Orange.
All right. Raul, hit me with some Ghostface.
Okay. First, he always says like, "What's your favorite scary movie?" Oh, hello, Sydney. This. It has a ghost face. One just recently, like 2 days before that you send us the questions, I was watching the Scream. I was watching one of the documentaries about Kevin Williamson, the writer, of how he found his inspiration for Ghostface. And so Kevin Williamson was a big horror fan. And also one of the scenes in the end of Scream, a spoiler, Billy Loomis, a scene says, why you're doing this? Why you want to kill all your friends? Why? And then he says, a lot of movie villains and a lot of murders doesn't have motivations. But if you want a motivation because of your curse word, mother, your mother slept with my father, and also that is why I wanted to get revenge of all of people. And also, if you want motivation, and also Wes Craven says the original motivation of Ghostface was that he had no motivation. He was only obsessed with horror movies, and he wanted to only kill only for enjoyment. But he went to the other option, like he was also, we needed to relationate with the story of Sidney that also portrays in the sequels. And also a lot of things also, they're very creative about Ghostface. He wants to break the horror genre. Like if you see one of the scenes that it says to Drew Barrymore, she says, "Who's there?" And then he on the phone says, "You're not gonna say who's there. That's a dead wish in a horror movie." And then also portrays also one of the most beautiful scenes in Scream while Drew Barrymore is dying and she's holding her phone, and also you can hear Ghostface dragging her, and also you can hear her daughter dying, and also she's very worried, and she opens the door and you can see Drew Barrymore hanging from a tree, and also all her guts ripping it out, and also in the other scenes in the whole movie, like Ghostface goes by the rules, but also wants to break the rules of a movie. He wants to make his own story. And also against Capitán Vidal from Pan's Labyrinth, from El Laberinto del Fauno, from Guillermo del Toro. In Pan's Labyrinth, like you said when in the past episodes, the real villain in the movie was him. He was the villain in that movie. But also, props for that choice because I hate that guy. Captain Vidal, the thing that he made in the end, I don't want to spoil it because a lot of people haven't watched that movie. It's a very good movie. I watched it on the theater like 2 times. And so, and also, I guess Clockwork Orange. Clockwork Orange is he's a kid. He's obsessed with violence. He has his posse, and also you understand a villain. You need his motivations. He has to have a good. He has to be calculated. He has to be ambitious. So that is why I chose Ghostface.
I mean, I don't agree with you about that they have to have a motivation. Joker's main thing is chaos, which is what Alexander Delarge's thing is too, and he's a terrifying villain. Let's talk about him being a kid. Alex is 15 years old at the beginning of the book. They don't specifically say how old he's supposed to be in the movie, but they do talk about how he has been already passed through a bunch of, like, state reform institutions, and they talk about school and stuff, so he is supposed to be a young kid. This is the only villain chosen out of the group that the entire movie is about them. Let's talk about before he gets arrested in the film. This 15-year-old kid is going around with his buddies. He beats up an old man, possibly to death. They steal, vandalize, rape, and murder against old people and whoever comes across their path, really. He's so terrible that his own friends set him up to get arrested, okay? So in the movie, he gets this treatment, and they turn him back so that he's reformed and he can't do these things. He's physically sickened when he goes to do violent stuff, and he actually causes more trouble when he's cured than when he was evil. They end up turning him back around at the end of the movie, so he ends up as evil as he was in the beginning, possibly even worse after all that he's been through. He's self-aware that he's horrible. He has no qualms about saying, you can't have a society with everybody having my manner of the night, because he knows what he's doing is wrong. He just doesn't care. He's the only character I can think of who would listen to Beethoven. It would inspire him to rape and murder people. AFI's list of 100 greatest villains of all time, he's number 12. Neither of your guys' characters were listed on that. Malcolm McDowell was also nominated for a Golden Globe for his performance, and he didn't get an Oscar, but he was considered snubbed because his performance is so amazing. This kid just attacks people with no motivation. He epitomizes chaos and violence, which is pretty much the opposite of what Ashley's character is like. Ashley's character doesn't even have a Wikipedia, so I had a hard time even researching him, but he's the weakest version of the monster in the movie, because the Frog and Pale Man kind of are how she sees him, and they're both scarier than he is. He's basically a wicked stepmother. He only hurts a couple people in the movie.
Let me give Ashley a second here to just talk about her character a little bit more, and then we'll start fighting.
All right,
Ash, tell us about Captain.
All right, so Captain Vidal is a captain in the regime that won the Spanish Civil War. So he is beholden to Franco the dictator, and so he's carrying out all of his evil in this, the vein that this is sanctioned by the government, and basically on the wrong side of history. When we first meet him, he's mad that Ophelia and her mother are 15 minutes late to their arrival at his compound because the mother was very ill and they had to stop because she is pregnant. Not doing too many bad things. Well, he kills the doctor that was working for him when he is no longer useful to him because, again, he's found out as a spy. His own people, or you think they're his people, actually hate him. It's implied that he killed Carmen's husband, that is Ophelia's mother, when they're having their little dinner party conversation, and she's talking about, oh yeah, we met at my store, and oh, my husband died, and then he came in to swoop me up. It's heavily implied that he murdered him. He tells the doctor attending to his wife to let her die and let the baby live. He beats a guy to death with a bottle, and he kills other people. If you want me to spoil it, I won't. But he's a very brutal person. And when he's confronted by the rebels, they have no sympathy for him because of all of the things that he has done, because he is not, he is the antagonist of our film. There is no sympathetic moments for him, even when, the things are against him at the end. The actor that portrayed him, Sergi Lopez, who was a comedy actor, he had to really kind of go outside of his wheelhouse to portray him, says, Vidal is the most evil character I've ever played in my career. It's impossible to improve upon it. The character is so solid and so well written. Vidal is deranged, a psychopath who is impossible to defend. Even though his father's personality marked his existence, and he's certainly one of the reasons for his mental disorder, that cannot be an excuse. It would seem to be very cynical to use that to justify or explain his cruel and cowardly acts. So, I think he can stand on par with our other two villains that you guys have chosen, even though he is, not the protagonist of his film. I think that actually kind of hurts your argument, Kimber.
Absolutely not. You can absolutely have movies about villains. That's what we pitched in round 2.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that because he's the protagonist, yes, he does some awful, awful things. There is no excuse for what he has done. But especially when he goes through the Ludovico treatment and some of the things that happen to him later, the music cues in that movie, masterfully, directed by Kubrick, I think it's trying to set up for that we're supposed to feel sorry for him, and I think the real villain of that movie is the society that would create such a person, the corrupt government, the dystopian future, the different sides playing against him, the government that's trying to change him, and then the resistance people that are trying to use him to get their own political agenda. agenda.
I see what you're saying, but if that were the case, if you were supposed to feel bad for him and this and that, then they wouldn't have turned him evil again at the end. He is the villain in this movie. He does way more horrible stuff than your guys is because he gets way more screen time. He has way more of a chance. Ghostface, let's talk about Ghostface for a second. Are you talking about Billy, Stu, Mickey, Roman, Jill, or Charlie? Because 6 people have played Ghostface. He only speaks online or on screen physically twice in the entire Scream series. His motivations change from character to character. This is not a cohesive. You're picking the one from the first movie. So Stu or Billy?
Billy and Stu, because they both.
Well, they're both in the context of that movie. Both of them would count.
I just think if Ghostface was such a strong character, then they would have stuck with Billy and Stu the whole time. Instead, they replace him every time, watering him down into a character where he's completely interchangeable, and he could be anyone behind the mask with any motivation. Her character is definitely more interesting, but I think that the real reason that he's so scary in the movie is because you see it through the eyes of the child. My movie, you're seeing completely from the perspective of the villain, and I think most people don't get so much sympathy for him as just noticing how horrible the stuff that Alex is doing. It's a movie that's completely about violence and horror.
And also, my choice for a villain, like you said, they were in the other Scream movies. They were different ghost faces. But that's the thing that Ghostface. That's the thing that villains to make. They made the idea of Ghostface. They wanted to demonstrate how can a person. Because if you really see the movie, there were a lot of red herrings in the first Scream. I remember the first time I watched it, I thought that Courtney Cox was the murderer. I didn't thought about Billy. I never see he was very shady. And also, like in the other movies, you were asking, it could be Randy, and also it could be a good twist, but maybe it could be Sidney. Because Ghostface is an idea. A villain has to inspire darkness. He has to inspire like a lot of darkness in his soul. So that is why in the other Scream movies, a lot of people they want to go to under the umbrella of Ghostface. They want to kill more people because they want to hostile Sidney Prescott's life. And also about Captain Vidal. Captain Vidal, a lot of people in the Spanish Civil War, they were like this. They were even worse than Captain Vidal. They were rapists. They were lash murderers. They were they were bigger than Captain Vidal.
Ashley herself actually just said that the dude's just following orders. He's not even really the big bad. The government is.
Yes.
In her movie. Also with my dude, you guys want to talk a lot about parents. Both of your movies deal with parental themes, with Billy wanting revenge for what happened with Sidney's mother, and then also Captain Vidal as a parent. When my character went back to his parents when he got released from prison, not only did they not know that he got released from prison, but they had rented his room out to someone else and were basically like, well, we kind of like this guy, so you're going to have to get out of here. No one likes this guy. Not even his own mother will let him back into the house. His friends set him up. They spend half of the movie beating him up and having him pay for all the stuff that he's done just to show you, to justify a reason for all the stuff that he does in the first half of the movie. He's talking about Ghostface and stuff being influential. This character is massively influential. You can see A Clockwork Orange all over the place in tons of modern movie villains because he epitomizes violence and chaos.
All right, let's get some final thoughts. Raul, start us off.
Okay, Scream also in the 90s, before Scream, there already was the death of horror. We needed a movie that revitalized also horror and also movie villains. There weren't a lot of very good movie villains in the 90s. And also when Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven united to make this beautiful meta/horror movie that is Scream, and created this character, Ghostface, that manipulated a lot of storytelling and also incorporated mystery and suspense. So that is why I chose Ghostface, because also it spawned a successful franchise and also spawned a lot of successful movies. And also against Captain Vidal, like I said, they were more awful people than Captain Vidal. There was internally in the whole movie, the real villain was the hope of the girl because she wanted hope. She wanted her brother to be okay. He wanted to be born great. He wanted her mother to be healthy, and she didn't get anything in the end. Sorry, spoiler alert. But her villain was Hope, and she didn't get it. And also in Clockwork Orange, well, Clockwork Orange is a cool movie. It's Stanley Kubrick, and it's by a lot of villains. But as I don't know if Clockwork Orange inspired, but Kevin Williamson said he was inspired about a lot of mass killings that were happening at the time. And also he incorporated his love of horror movies. And also how can be a real person to inspire? Like he can manipulate all the things that I have learned, and also could be a villain. It could be a killer. So that is why I chose Ghostface.
All right, Ash, give me your final thoughts on Vidal.
All right, so first, the kind of final points. Like, their two villains are delinquents. Stanley Kubrick said himself that Alex DeLarge is a teenage delinquent. And again, in that film, I think the real villain is a society that would allow that kind of character to exist. And then in Scream, like, those are just two teenage idiots that have dubious motivation. I don't really think of them like in the top all-time villains. Whereas Captain Vidal, yes, he is working for the Francoist government, but nobody in that movie is giving him direct orders. All of the thing that he is doing on his compound, he is doing of his own accord, because he has no compassion for anybody, including his own wife, and the only person he cares about is himself and his legacy. That's why he makes the decision to say, well, just save my son, instead of saying to save his wife, as it's all about perfection and image, and that gets ruined in the film when his face gets sliced open, and plus he kills a child at the end of that movie. It's the things that he does to his own people, to his own family. It's unspeakable. So I don't think it's fair to say that he was listening to orders. No, he made all of those choices himself in the name of his own vanity and narcissism. So I think, and to think that kind of thing could really happen in society today as well. Whereas in Clockwork Orange, that's a dystopian future. That's a kind of like a warning signal of if we don't change our ways, this kind of thing could happen. Whereas with Captain Vidal, these are the kinds of things that currently happen in our world right now.
All right, Kimber, you have the final word.
Okay, so in Anthony Burgess's book, A Clockwork Orange, there are tons of different gangs like Alex's. The reason that Alex is special and that it focuses on him is because he is particularly brutal. If this is him at 15 years old, what's he going to be like when he's released back out into society is the scariest question. He is brutal. None of your characters beat an old lady to death with a giant phallus. Raul was talking about what inspired Ghostface. I was saying that Alex inspires other characters and always continue to have. Again, AFI's 12th greatest villain of all time, so I'm not the only one who thinks he's amazing. It's a brilliant character and an amazing movie by Stanley Kubrick, who was excellent at creating villains. So I think it's the best villain from a director who was an expert with villains.
All right.
And also, can you quote? And also, Ghostface has a lot of quotability.
I can quote A Clockwork Orange, and it's not even really in English.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Tom, talk to me about some of the facts.
All right. Again, factually clean. I was going to bring up the Ghostface thing for some clarity because Twitter is asking, but we already covered that. Kimber mentioned AFI's list. I went and found a list that would include all of your picks. Kimber's is still not too far off. Out of 100, she's 14th. Vidal is 39th, and Ghostface is 79th. According,
where did you find that list, just out of curiosity?
San Diego Reader.
All right. Thank you, San Diego Reader, for including everyone from our fight.
It was hard. It was hard to find. That's the hardest thing. It's a lot of this is opinion, so I'm trying to bring them all together. On Twitter, we're getting a lot of, Han Gruber, no Han Gruber love, Hannibal Lecter, some Nurse Ratched. So there's a lot of opinions.
All right. Well, let's see. when I thought about this round, I knew it was going to be tough. It definitely was tough. I think the thing that really took you out of it for me, Raul, was that your movie is a bit more campy. The villain isn't really present enough, and even you said Wes Craven kind of gave up on the original concept, which was to have a killer that had no motivation. So, which I think would have made them better instead of throwing in the whole "oh, our parents were terrible." So for me, it came down to Ashley and Kimber. Oh man, it's tough. It really is tough. This one's really hard. You know who the villain is in Pan's Labyrinth. It's very clear throughout that he's the villain, and he has he's not the. Oops, we lost someone.
She came back.
She's back. All right, good.
I'm trying.
I just looked over and I'm like, oh, she's gone. So I'm very sorry. I've taken away all of Kimber's points, and Ashley, you win for the day.
What?
No,
Don't do that.
No, I'm just kidding. Dropping off is not a crime. So you know who the villain is in your movie, and while Alex DeLarge is a character that is a horrible person, I don't know that he's necessarily a villain in the context of the film, whereas in Ashley's movie, I mean, he is killing the child, but he also has the antagonist-protagonist role throughout. For me, that really kind of got me, but the line that sealed the deal was when Ashley said that the real villain in Clockwork Orange is the society that created him, and I kind of agree with that statement. So for me, Ashley, you get the final point, and that means you are moving into the lightning round with Kimber.
Yep.
Raul, you did a great job today, though.
Oh, thank you.
Excellent fighting. I hope you'll hang out here for a little bit while we go to the lightning round. I'm definitely going to need your help, as evidenced by the last couple fights here that we've done with the lightning round. I am sure to disagree with all of you. All right.
Oh, man.
Do you want to hear the poll on that before we go?
Oh, yeah, please. What was the poll result?
The poll result was 45% with Vidal from Pan's Labyrinth, 33%. Yep, 33% for Alex and 22% for Ghostface.
All right, so today I only disagreed once, and I had to put myself over on another poll. But other than that,
I'm sure they're not asking for your head like last time Kimber was on.
Wow.
Oh, Sam was calling for it earlier.
Uh-oh.
Kimber made it to the lightning round. Let's not kill me yet. She might still win. Don't know. All right, guys, we're going to do the lightning round. We're going to do it's 20 seconds and 10 seconds for rebuttal. Tom, you are a keeper. You just tell them, just say time when it's ready, or when their time is up. And in our first question, we are going to ask, these two movies are playing on cable. Which one do we watch? Space Jam or Scooby-Doo?
Space Jam.
Scooby-Doo.
All right. Scooby. I heard Space Jam first, so Ash, you are first.
All right, so Space Jam is a Looney Tunes classic. It has the awesome "I Believe I Can Fly" song and "Welcome to the Space Jam." I think it's fun to look back at that movie if you haven't seen it in a while, to kind of go like, oh my God, like why did I like this in the '90s, and just kind of have a fun like riff track session at your house, where Scooby-Doo is just kind of like boring.
Time.
All right, Kimber.
I think that Space Jam is actively bad if you watch it again. I think that nostalgia is almost better left in the past. It kind of ruins it when you go back to look at it. Scooby-Doo's a mediocre movie, but I'd rather match a mediocre movie than ruin a nostalgic one from my past. So I would definitely watch Scooby-Doo and just have a good time instead of ruin something that I can have a better nostalgic opinion of in my head.
All right, rebuttal.
All right, I think Scooby-Doo was bad back then. It would be bad now. So I think there's a fun factor of rewatching Space Jam. And again, I love watching movies and criticizing them. So I think I would have much more fun doing that with Space Jam than I would with Scooby-Doo.
All right, Kimber.
I think it would bum me out and ruin Space Jam to watch it now. I haven't seen it since I was a kid. It has a nostalgia factor that I'm not really willing to give up. Scooby-Doo's just all right. It wouldn't ruin anything for me to watch that.
Time.
All right. Raul, who would you pick?
That is a tough one. I would choose Scooby-Doo because Scooby-Doo focuses more on the nostalgia because of the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. And also Space Jam, a lot of things would not hold up because it wasn't like a 90s movie. It was a lot of Michael Jordan things. So that is my choice. I chose Kimber.
Tom?
I was a little on the fence until Kimber said that she pointed out she hadn't watched it forever and she wouldn't want to ruin it for herself, and I kind of feel the same way about it. Although I probably wouldn't have picked that to begin with, I probably would go with Scooby-Doo.
So your pick was for Kimber?
Yeah.
All right, well, I hate to tell you this, guys, but I'm going to go for Ashley, and I'm going to overrule here. And the reasoning for that is Ashley is the one who gave me the most information about the movie that she picked. Specifically, she could actually name music from the movie, which I was impressed by. But Ashley actually knew more about Space Jam, and Kimber really just gave me general impressions about both, and I actually heard about the movie. So, Ashley, you get the first point.
All right.
Lighting round. Question number 2. What is the best movie starring Clint Eastwood?
Yeah, I don't know anything about Clint Eastwood. I don't even know what he's in.
He's in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That's the only movie I know from him.
All right, I'm disappointed in both of you, but I have a movie. Good, the Bad, the Ugly.
Yeah, I don't know.
This round. Give me a film, Kimber.
I don't have one. I apologize. I don't know anything about Clint Eastwood.
All right, then I have to give the point to Ashley.
You don't have an extra question to make it more fair?
I do have an extra question, but Clint Eastwood is a very popular actor, and I think everyone should have at least one Clint Eastwood movie they can pull out of their ass.
Gran Torino.
Yeah, Gran Torino, The Unforgiven, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Dirty Harry.
I wanted to say Gran Torino, but I'm like, what's that movie? El Camino or some shit? I don't know.
Right,
the movie with Hilary Swank, that she's a fighter.
What was that one called?
$1 Million Baby.
A Million Dollar Babies. So, Cedar, would you like to take any of these movies, Kimber, just for the fun of fighting them, or do you concede this point?
I mean, if you want, I don't really know these movies.
All right, we'll give the point to Ashley, and we'll go to the third one. Kimber, you will need all 3 points to stay alive.
Every time I'm screwed in the damn...
The speed round, I hate the speed round. Even when I do the speed rounds for the show, for the Screen Junkies
the speed round is so hard. So
when you're trying to think it's coming fast, it's okay. All right, who is Hollywood's best Margaret? I will take Maggie's, Margaret's.
Margaret Cho.
Margaret Cho.
Maggie Smith, Dame Maggie Smith.
All right, Kimber, you get to start us off.
I don't know. Margaret Cho's cool. She's got tattoos. Have fun fighting Hector Ashley.
You can do it. Come on.
I don't know. It's not my day. I didn't get stuff I can work with. Sorry.
All right. Well, tell me about Dame Maggie Smith so we can feel good about her.
All right, well, Dame Maggie Smith, knighted, in the whatever they call that in England. She was in Harry Potter as Professor McGonagall, like iconic role. She's had a storied film career. Like she's in Downton Abbey. I mean, she's just, and she's like a classy British old lady, and she's cool. I want to be like her when I grow up.
Anything else you want to say about Margaret Cho?
No, I'm just really disappointed, so have fun.
Ashley, I have to give you the point, and that means, Ashley, you are the winner of today's round of Fan Friction. Congratulations, well done. You will get to face Hector Navarro in 2
God,
weeks.
why did I do this, Kimber? Why didn't I take it earlier more so Raul could do this?
Why I wanted...
We'll need a fact checker, Raul. Who knows what could happen? Okay. So we'll see you in 2 weeks to face Hector. Wonderful job, guys. As always, we do want to mention a couple things here. One, we do this show because we love movie fights from the Screen Junkies Network, and the information on where you can find the Screen Junkies is down below in our description. If you've never heard of movie fights before, definitely check it out. This is what this show is based on. We love them, so please follow and subscribe to their channels. They are fantastic. Tom, where can we find you?
I am Tom Riddler, but it's probably easier to go to @OddShapedPanel, which is me and Kimber's pop culture discussion show.
Kimber, want to tell us about OSP real quick and where to find you on the internet?
Yeah, OSP is a show we do on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. It's an open discussion pop culture show. We have different themes every week. This Monday we're doing 80s and 90s nostalgia, so we ask questions and we take callers, and then we edit it down into about a 30-minute video every week, and we post those up. So if you want to join us, anyone can call in. It's 9 p.m. Eastern on Blab, and we're always posting the links on @OddShapePanel and @SJ+Junkie on Twitter.
Awesome. Raul, where can we find the #1 Screen Junkies fan?
You can. One day I will go to the speed run. One day I will win. This is my Twitter, Raul Vader RDC.
Wonderful. We will get Chiron someday, and we will be able to know what everybody's stuff is from the bottom.
You can find me here on the fan fight. You can find me also in Not Shape Panel. You can find me here on This Is Stuff, and also the Screen Junkies fan page. You can find us on Facebook, and also you can find me on Twitter.
Awesome. And Ashley, when you're not teaching students...
Yeah, when I'm not teaching my heart out every weekday and spending all of my time after school focused on trying to make English fun and exciting for today's youth, you can find me on Twitter at Mrs. Davis_DPHS. I also like calling in and talking with Tom and Kimber on Odd Shape Panel. It's the highlight of my Monday night every week, and so you guys, you should really watch that show. They have a lot of awesome people that aren't me and that are smarter than me call in and talk to them. And you can, find me on Tuesday and Thursday nights live tweeting TV and movie fights, because I love playing along with those shows. It's a lot of fun to see everyone else's choices, and I just like hanging out with all these awesome people.
Thank you, Ash.
Thank you.
Guys, we will be we're at TUFF channel on Twitter, so please follow us there and subscribe to this channel. If you're enjoying what you see today, we'd love to have you join us every single week when we do a fan friction. Again, next week we will be off, but there will be a special show dropping on Sunday. It's going to be very interesting. So it's not going to be live. It's just going to be a video, but we will post information about it when it goes up. So check that out. The DVD Bunker, which is hosted by Brian Hurst, who won the championship for fan friction last week. The DVD Bunker will be going up sometime in the next week, probably by Friday, so keep an eye out for that. And other than that, we will see you guys in 2 weeks, along with Hector Navarro, for a special episode of Fan Friction. So have a great one, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.